Do we have? All right, the chair lays out House Bill 3618 and recognizes Representative Kloxler.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This bill has to do with invasive searches of female inmates within TDCJ. Currently, incarcerated women, who represent just 8% of the prison population, are often subjected to group strip searches as a condition of accessing routine programming like education, healthcare, substance use treatment, vocational training, and chapel services. These surges, developed for a predominantly male population, are not only ineffective at detecting contraband among women, but also have become a barrier to rehabilitation and re-entry programs. I'm going to stop there because I want to make sure that you guys have as much time as possible to hear from the witnesses.
Members, are there any questions for the representative? Okay. If not, we're going to call you, we're going to respect your right to close and call you up in just a moment, please. For those wishing to testify, please, we have to finish before 10, so 9:55, we're going to adjourn whether we're finished or not. So with that, the chair calls up Lori Mellinger. Good morning, ma'am. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lori Mellinger. I'm testifying on behalf, in support of HB 3618.
And are you representing yourself?
I am representing myself and Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, where
Okay,
I
you
am
may
chairman of
proceed,
the
please.
board. I was incarcerated at the Coleman unit, and I was released in 2015. About 5 years after my release, I went to work inside that same unit doing inside programming and reentry for a program called Empowering Women Out of Prison. I believe that gives me the firsthand knowledge of what life is like both behind the bars and coming back inside. The Coleman unit was better at programming than most, and from the outside, it always looked like a place of opportunity. But what visitors didn't always see, what no one really talked about when people were taking part in the programs, was the quiet and constant humiliation we endured based on strip searching. After classes, after rec, after working out in industry, we were always ordered to go inside, strip completely naked in groups. We would hold our clothes in our hands, sometimes have to walk across a gym fully exposed under the eyes of the guards and under each other. There was no privacy, there was no dignity, and anything that could be seen as a flaw, a scar, a stretch mark, a tattoo, was up for judgment, ridicule, and shame, and not necessarily from the other women, but from the guards. I grew up in a very modest household, and being stripped like that in front of strangers was devastating. It's hard to revisit those memories even now. The damage was real, and it was never about the safety. We were told that these searches were necessary for security, but in all my time, I didn't see dangerous contraband. I saw notes, I saw stamps, I saw pieces of comfort, but I never saw a threat. The real harm wasn't from what the women carried. It was from what was taken from us, our dignity, our privacy, and our sense of health. This is a critical step forward, and it limits group searches to true emergencies, requires female officers, and promotes humane and less invasive practices. I urge you all to pass this bill.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your testimony. Hang tight. Let's see if there's any questions for you.
Whoops, I just walked off.
Representative Lowe, for what purpose?
Question.
You may proceed, sir.
Hi, thank you for coming to testify.
Thank you.
So, and I'm not trying to discount your experiences when I ask this. I went to the Coleman unit probably a month ago, and I was blown away at how efficient it was. However, you know, when we walked over to the industry area and we came back into one of the big rooms, and I'm just asking this from a logistical standpoint. I understand the privacy concerns. However, there's not enough guards, and there's also not enough, I think, individual spaces in order to conduct such strip searches. So I'm asking, do you think that there's a logistical issue here with the strip searches?
Thank you for that question. When you asked me that, I took myself all the way back to when I did work at industry. And I remember as you go through that breezeway, if it's still there. It's been a few years since I've been there. You walk into a room, and it was in that tiny waiting room where we were stripped, right there. That was also, you walked further, and it was the chow hall. And so, I mean, staffing is always an issue. I can tell you why I believe staffing is an issue at that particular unit. And I'm sorry, y'all, that's because it's a private facility and the pay is less. And it's hard to make a living around Austin, Texas, isn't it? So that is in and of itself another issue. But I believe that there are ways to mitigate that. I worked second shift. I know first shift is typically full, but there is that dedicated room where we eat, unfortunately, and multi-purposing that to kind of bring them into that little area as you're walking in could allow for a modicum of privacy, I think.
Okay, I do generally support this idea. My only concern is what are the construction costs? What other necessary measures will be taken to ensure that compliance with this? So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Members, any other questions? If not, thank you for being here. You're fine, thank you. At this time, the chair calls up Jennifer Toon. Good morning. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Jennifer Toon. I represent SELF and Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, and I am in support of this bill. I'll keep it real short and sweet. I was incarcerated almost 20 years. Our organization hears from over 500 women. So when we say that, oh, well, you were incarcerated a few years ago, things have changed, we still hear from members on the inside all the time. Men and women are different, and our levels of contraband and the level of security threat is just different. We would hope that TDCJ would be able to show the data on what type of contraband is found at women's units versus men's units. I haven't really been able to find that type of data to really piece out what kind of contraband we're talking about. In my 20 years in being strip searched, just like Lori said, I never saw these dangerous items during a strip search. So we are in support of this bill. We understand that strip searching is necessary. We would just like to make sure that women are treated with dignity and humanity when these procedures happen.
Members, any questions? Chair recognizes Representative Lowe.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for coming. So, you know, I read a lot about contraband, right? And most of the time, admittedly so, it is male inmates. But from your time incarcerated, who brought in the majority of the contraband?
Oh boy, you're coming with good questions today.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
I
great.
care.
The majority of contraband comes from staff. You ask any incarcerated person or formerly incarcerated person, they're going to tell you that it comes from a staff. And so when we see things like strip searches or mailroom policies being changed to combat contraband, while that may happen then, right, the majority of it comes through staff. And oftentimes, the influx that we have seen, K2 and other drugs start to infiltrate women's facilities, which is shocking because I never saw that in 20 years. Often, yes, it is coming from staff and from male staff, from our members, being able to use that as a way to, get vulnerable women to participate in things with male staff. So the contraband comes from the staff, from our lived experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then also, I just have to ask a side question. Were you ever strip searched within the presence of a male?
Absolutely. Right, and that's by policy not supposed to happen. And I think maybe that's kind of sometimes when we try to talk to the agency about it, you know, they see policy, we see practice. And so oftentimes we were stripped in these big areas where male staff could walk by or see. Sometimes the bus driver, even though it's not supposed to be a male bus driver on the medical transport bus. Yes, it happens.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Members, any other questions? If not, how long have you been out?
How long have I been out? I have been out almost 6 years.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, the chair calls up Emily McDonald. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
My name is Emily McDonald. I represent myself, and I'm here today in support of House Bill 3618. I was incarcerated for 13 years, and I'm not here to demonize TDCJ. I was housed on 4 different units due to my HVAC certification, and I encountered many officers who were passionate about their job and keeping the prison safe, while simultaneously helping inmates to rehabilitate and reenter society. Having participated in multiple Wyndham classes, vocational and college classes, I experienced firsthand the trauma, humiliation, and detrimental impact group strip searches can have on female inmates. While participating in culinary arts vocational, I was strip searched as a group 4 times every day. My class of 16 inmates was led into a large, empty room and told to get naked every morning. The officer in charge refused to let anyone hold their clothes to cover themselves and would not begin searching until everyone threw their clothes in a pile on the ground in front of them. You could always pinpoint the women who would shy away and act nervous. Most of the time, these women didn't even attempt the class because they heard stories of what they would endure. The officer started on one end and went person to person with the squat and cough procedure before having us shake our clothes and move on to the next one. We did this when we arrived, when we left for lunch, when we returned from lunch, and when we left for the day. 4 times a day, 20 times a week, 480 group strip searches for the 6-month class. We did this regardless of whether we entered the kitchen area, regardless of the fact that all knives were tethered and tools were accounted for prior to leaving class, and regardless of the fact that there were bathroom stalls right next door where we could have been searched 3 at a time with some semblance of privacy. In the 6 months I was in vocation, no dangerous contraband was found. The contraband that was found included things such as a t-shirt that had another inmate's TDCJ number in the collar, chapstick, which we were not allowed to bring with us, and one time the officer hit the jackpot, finding a girl's Free World eyeshadow, which for female prisoners is probably the #1 major contraband, comparable to a weapon for a male inmate. Group strip searching is not necessary for the safety and security of the female prison system and creates an unnecessary traumatic experience for the women, oftentimes preventing them from taking classes that would aid in their rehabilitation. House Bill 3618 is a step in restoring dignity and encouraging programming for female inmates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, any questions? If not, thank you for being here. At this time, the chair calls up Marcy Marie Simmons. Good morning. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
Thank you. My name's Marcy Marie Simmons. I represent Linus Justice Impacted Women's Alliance and myself, and I'm for this bill.
You may proceed.
I'm going to keep this really short because key points have already been made. I spent 10 years incarcerated in Texas, most of my time on the Dr. Lane Murray unit. Similar to Emily, I worked jobs and took classes that required these group strip searches. I'm going to get really raw very quickly and just walk you through what that looks like as a female. If you're on your cycle, when you walk into the room where you group strip search, you take your clothes off at the door to get in line, and you remove your menstrual products in a group, standing in line, waiting to be strip searched. So you can imagine what that looks like. All the key points about humiliation have been made. I just want to say, if this procedure is about safety, they are failing miserably because during group strip searches is when we can get things through, because there are multiple women, multiple things going on, and a few officers. So if I want to send a kite to my friend, a note, if I want to bring in a frog or flower from working field squad, that's how we would do it during group strip searches, not during individual strip searches. They're just not secure. It doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Members, any questions? If not, thank you for being here. At this time, the chair calls up Sarah Reyes. Good morning. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sarah Reyes. I'm with Texas Center for Justice and Equity. I'm the Youth Justice Policy Director, and I strongly support HB 3618.
And are you representing yourself as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This bill reinforces our obligation to uphold dignity, transparency, and fundamental human rights within our systems. It addresses a persistent issue, invasive and often unjust searches that can re-traumatize women, many of whom have already been survivors of abuse. These practices not only cause harm, but also discourage participation in critical rehabilitation programs that are essential for successful reintegration. There's also no compelling evidence or data from TDCJ that shows routine visual body cavity searches during access to programming such as education, substance abuse treatment, or vocational training prevents any type of contraband or improves public safety at all. These programs are rehabilitative in nature and are critical to reducing recidivism. Subjecting women to invasive searches simply for attending these programs creates a chilling effect. It discourages participation and undermines rehabilitation, which should be a central goal of these systems. This bill still also ensures that visual body cavity searches may only be performed under urgent circumstances or when reasonable suspicion exists, which I believe is a clear enforceable standard that protects both security and the rights of individual in custody. I urge you to support this bill. It reflects the values of fairness, decency, and responsibility that Texans expect from these systems. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Members, any questions? If not, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Members, we do have a resource witness, if any of y'all need one. Anybody need it? Representative Lowe, who do we have for the resource witness? At this time, we're going to call up Jennifer Cosby, Regional Director, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
My name is Jennifer Cosby. I am a Regional Director for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, as testifying as a resource witness on behalf of the agency Bill 3618.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Representative Lowe, you may proceed.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the tour a couple of weeks ago at the Coleman Center. It was great. It was very eye-opening. While I was asking some of these questions and listening to some of these ladies talk about their experiences, I was thinking of TSA. We go through all of these screeners and all of this pretty cool technology. So I'm wondering, from an efficiency standpoint alone, would we be able to find some technology to put into some of these facilities instead of having to go through the strip searches? Do you know, have you guys looked into that?
Yes, sir. The agency has looked into that, and we are in the process of having those millimeter scanners placed in facilities.
Okay, so would those be able to actually eliminate the need for cavity searches?
Yes, sir, possibly.
Okay. Also, I see some of the contraband brought in by the males. I mean, it's amazing what they can bring in their bodies. But what about the females? I mean, obviously, most of the stuff they can also bring in, but do you see any statistical or any actual physical evidence that that there's a huge concern about female inmates bringing in contraband?
At this time, I do not have any statistical data. However, I have on other facilities that I have worked on during a search seen contraband.
I would like to just add that if we are able to implement this technology that into the prison systems, I would also like to see it where officers coming onto the shift would also have to go through it, because it's pretty clear that most of the contraband that comes in is because of TDCJ employees.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? If not, thank you for being here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3618? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Troxclair to close on our bill.
Thank you so much, Chairman and members, giving each of these women who feel so passionately about this issue the time and respect to tell their stories publicly. And thank you, Representative Lowe, for your thoughtful questions. I wanted to respond to a couple things. My understanding is that we've already spent over $8 million installing scanners, and that according to a warden that provided feedback on this bill, that all of the prisons currently have some sort of technology that could be used for this purpose. I want to underscore also the expense that taxpayers spend to ensure that these women have access to rehabilitation programs. It's better for them, and it's better for society as a whole for them to come out, having participated in the programs that are provided to them within TDCJ custody, and yet being humiliated 4 times a day in this way certainly provides a disincentive for them to do so. This bill provides enough flexibility for strip searches to still be conducted if there are exigent circumstances, but also very importantly, it makes sure that TDCJ does implement policies that say female correctional officers are used whenever there are unclothed female inmates. So I'm so grateful for your consideration of this bill. Ultimately, this restores dignity to the women who are working so hard to better themselves while incarcerated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Members, any questions? If not, thank you for being here. Is there any objections? If there's no objections, House Bill 3618 will be left pending. Are there any objections? House Bill 3618 is left pending.